And then, okay. And then we were able to run different measures, and then we were able to lift that to 86.7 pass rate in the exam this year. So we call it a success. However, we have still some concerns whether what the measures that we have taken are valid and if we have actually met the learning outcomes of the module. So I will be taking you through the measures and the experience that we have learned through this uh, setting the exam and everything. So just before I start and take you to more details and provide some evidence of what has been, happening, I would like just to tell some few information and brief about the module that I'm running. So it's a biomedical science core module and usually happens in level 5 in their first semester. We usually have around 130 students. And it's a 40 credit hours module, so you can tell it's a big module and it has two assessments. One assessment is case study, and the second one is the exam. And because it's an IBMS accredited program, so as you all know, the students they must pass the two assessment to be called as pass the module. So the learning outcomes of the module, so they need, we take the students through pathobiological basis of diseases, and it's a range of disease and how this knowledge is applied in diagnostics, and then how everything is going to feed into pharmacology and therapeutics of those diseases. And also the students are required to develop scientific writing skills, and also they get to have some sense of how they interpret data from analytical techniques. So the coursework, because we have adopted a scenario-based learning, so this is why the coursework was designed as a case study style, and then the exam. The first design last year it consisted of 30 MCQs, 7 short essay questions, very short, and then they needed to actually all the exam questions were obligatory. So why we have went for this design of the exam, because level 5 it's a module, it's a core module, and it has core knowledge for disease. So it leads into advanced knowledge in level 6. And then also it preceded by fundamental knowledge that comes in level 4. So we needed to make sure that the knowledge is standardized and core knowledge for all. And DDT also feeds into too many modules that are coming in their semester 2 in level 5 itself, and also in their level 6, many electives. So that knowledge was needed. So it's a foundation and it's a core knowledge. So this is why we thought the structure of the exam, they need to approach all the questions. But the disaster was exam pass rate was 40% and the mean mark was 37%, which means that this could be because of many problems. So here I just provided some analysis that I ran last year because I was trying to reflect on what went wrong. So you can tell that the students, they performed really well in their MCQ section because when I say this is a performance indicator, because we want the student to score 40% and above to be called as passed. So for them, for the MCQs, this was not a problem at all. However, when it comes to the short answer questions, you can tell that the performance indicator was many of the mean marks, they were below the performance indicator, which was telling us something. The student, they did not like those writing in the short, this is style of questions. So what went wrong? So we were trying to think about many factors. We thought about the student engagement. We did also think about the students were not actually keeping up with the huge teaching material in the module. It's a 40 credit hours module. And probably there was not enough formative assessment. We did not have like a very well structured formative assessment. And also the exam design, we considered this as one of the factors that caused the problem. Although we have not gotten any complaints from the student side, they all said it was our problem, we were not able. So the students were struggling, of course. So I have run analysis and I compared last year and this year attendance, and I could see very minimum change between the 2 years. So there was no any change in the engagement. When I say engagement, I know it's a general term we use, but I'm just calling on the attendance using some JISC data, and that's it. But engagement, I think it's broader than this because it could be they're not attending, but still they are engaging with the material and recording we provide on Blackboard. But it's just a rough way to look at it. So the measures that we have taken this year, so I think the team, they injected like more structured formative assessment and mock exam. So we injected like really high dose of formative assessment per each of the disease topic. And we also ran a mock exam that was not very far from their final exam. So the restructuring, also we thought of restructuring of the exam, and we have done, I think, a big change. So we increased the number of the MCQs for this section, which involve the short essay questions. Instead of them solving the 7, we only offer them 3, but this was the discriminative part of the exam. And then there was one of the colleagues kind of suggested that what if we have a additional section, we called it so the idea was having a coursework related question. And for that, we also, if the students, they have used AI, they need to have learned something, and then they need to bring that knowledge to their exam to be able to solve that question. So I like the idea. And then I ran that by a few of the students that were struggling. And then the students, they said, we don't want to write in the exam. So the students nowadays, they do not like any writing type of question. So this is when I came with this idea, with this extended matching questions, because I was involved in USMLE like question. We used to do this in my previous institute. So I have adopted this style, and we bring the scenario of their case study, and then we bring some questions, and then they match the questions, the answers with the questions. So also there was a suggestion: how can we just give mark for matching? Can we add stringency? And we added stringency by, for example, the students, they needed to take one answer and why. They need to make a reasoning why they have chosen that answer for that question. So that worked fine. And then obviously it did work, and we got an 86.7% pass rate. And this is also going to lead into the module first time pass rate, because if they don't pass the exam, they won't pass the module. So we call it a win. However, if you can tell, is still where we have the short answer questions. We get the performance indicator. Like if I call it for individual question in here, it would be around 6 marks, because each question should be 15. And if we are expecting the student to have a 40% from this 15, so it's around 6 marks out of 15. And this is the line represents 6. If we have this across all over these questions, so the students, they have not done really great in this part, which is the short essay questions. So the mean mark for this section was 16.4, which is less than 18, what we expect for them to have the 40%. But they did really well in their MCQs and the EMQs. So again, the students are struggling in this specific. So they don't show depth. It's very superficial knowledge. So my questions now for whoever is we're having in this support network, have you experienced similar outcomes when redesigning assessment when it comes to some modules or programs? And to what extent does this redesigning assessment support the achievement of learning outcomes? Because we were talking to each other as a team, whether the students are actually getting the knowledge we want them to get, because we're going superficial with MCQs, the style of the questions, EMQs. Again, it's something related from their coursework, is also matching question. But when it comes to the core knowledge and depth in knowledge, we are not seeing a high performance. But we got the pass rate high. So, what potential challenges or risk might arise from the assessment approach, and how might they be mitigated? Um, I had also conversation with a colleague, and they suggested an alternative suggestion that what we can do is we can have that instead of having a case study coursework, we can have exam one, like just to test half of the material, and then exam two, and then we test the second half of the material. Something that I'm not really convinced with because one of the learning outcomes is testing. Or they need to develop their scientific writing, and we needed to meet that via the case study. And the students, they liked it because we offered them topics and they choose the topics themselves. So I also would like people to reflect on this if that's possible. And this is what all I have. And I would like to hear from the rest and happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Samrein. That was very interesting. I think we all empathise with trying to find assessments that work for students that
I
they can
know.
actually do, but also demonstrate the depth of knowledge that we require as well. So
Yeah.
I don't think any of us have got the answer, but it would be really nice to hear examples of what people are doing. Are there any
Yeah.
questions, Neil?
So, Sammy, a couple of things strike me.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it's a 40 credit module, so you're assessing a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what. So, have you considered, or your team considered splitting it into two separate modules?
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second one is, well, I was interested. I'm a chemist, but I'm not sort of not involved in biomedical science. But I did oversee when we had our biomedical science course at Kingston reaccredited. And this requirement to pass the exam in both elements was only required for clinical modules. So what question I'd ask you is this requirement for passing both assessments something you have for all your modules or just one or two modules or three or four, whatever?
Yeah. Okay, so the first question is dividing this material. So what we have done is there was a curriculum redevelopment last year because the university thought merging some modules is going to less or reduce the number of the assessments because of the anxiety around the assessments, as well as um, because we had some we lost many of the staff, so they needed to kind of merge modules and make the work less. So this module is an outcome of merging two longitudinal. When I say longitudinal modules, they were two modules running through semester one and semester two. So biomedical investigation and pathological basis of disease, both of them they were running semester one and semester two. So both of them they were merged and they gave this disease diagnostics and therapeutics. And I have cut lots of this material out and making sure that we sell it to the student in a very attractive way. So this is why I came up with this scenario-based learning, making sure that is not just solid some random diseases and then we take them through this is the pathobiology of this disease and this knowledge is applied for diagnostics and therapeutics. But I agree the material is huge. We can't go back because they were two separate modules and because of the university wanting us to come up with bigger modules and less assessments. This is why we have this module.
I mean, it's tricky, but I think 40 credit modules is quite outside the sector norm, to be honest. I think that's one of the problems you'll face. The other question I have is, does the professional body require an exam in this module?
This is really a good question. IBMS, they do. Yes, they
And
do.
the other thing is, is it possible to be, permitted materials or open book?
This is something it might be useful to discuss whether the IBMS they do allow us to have an open book exam, although I
I
doubt
mean, there's
it.
the thing, but
Yeah,
I'm just thinking that's some of the things that we've done at Kingston to address. We've had
yeah,
examples with modules that the students really struggle on exam. I mean, the
yeah,
other one that we have done is a bit like what you've suggested, is actually the exam doesn't assess the whole module.
yeah.
And that might be something to consider for particularly a 40 credit, so you might think
Mm,
what is the content that's not covered in your coursework assessment,
Hmm.
The exam focuses on that bit. So,
Yeah. This is why instead of having like all the questions needed to be answered in the first design, now we're only going for only 3 out of 7. So the students, even if you just go for only 3 of these disease topics, they should be able to
do they
qualify.
know what's coming up though?
Uh,
Do the students still think they have to revise everything?
we Each question should address one topic, so the students can choose which topic they would like to go for. Um,
So,
we,
yeah, so
mhm,
you're saying that they only have to revise 3 out of 7 topic areas.
yes,
Okay. So, okay.
yeah, yeah. And we have shared also the backbone of the exam paper because the mock exam was on Blackboard for, for making things feasible and easy, because we have 130. So if we go for an actual paper mock exam, it might be a bit difficult in terms of logistics and all this. But yeah, but in order to make sure that they know exactly how this is going to work, we provided them with the backbone of the exam paper. So they set their expectation, they know exactly how the exam paper will look like and everything.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that does seem you've done, some of the things, because essentially now they don't have to revise the whole syllabus.
No,
So I mean, although
yeah.
you could say the MCQs might examine the whole syllabus, I don't know.
Yes, they do.
So,
So
but that's still quite a revision load, I suppose.
it is a revision load, yeah. But we have injected lots of formative assessment. Like each topic, they do have lots of practice questions. The mock exam also had lots of MCQs that they were not very far from their final
Yeah.
exam as well.
My experience is, yeah, I mean, that's preparation for the correct, but the actual revision having it, the cognitive load,
I agree.
is a demand for them. And that's just higher, I think, if you've got a 40 credit module.
Yeah.
Anything
So
else? Alice, you got any question?
Yes, thanks, Samrein. I was wondering, so you sort of touched on student feedback, but did you collect any student feedback of the before versus after, and any sort of data on how the students were actually finding it or what they were struggling with?
yeah, to our surprise, when the pass rate was 40%, I thought there will be a big complaints about the exam, and no, even in the student voice, the student, they have not brought anything up. I'm not very sure why. But this year, I think because the module itself, the way we deliver it, it was quite attractive. So we always receive a positive feedback about how the module is delivered. But last year, there was a call and a shout for having and providing more practice question. I think this was not had not been done properly last year, but this year we have injected lots of practice question, and maybe this is why we got less feedback about providing some practice questions. This year, no, we have not had any complaint. Everything was positive. It just was timetabling problems and organization. But other than this, no, I'm not very sure why the student they have not complained last year.
Because I think you mentioned that they don't really like doing writing in an exam,
Yeah,
so they'd much
yeah,
rather have just MCQs. But my question was really about how well you're preparing them for the next year. So they take this in year 2, and then presumably then have to go on to year 3.
100%.
Are the year 3 exams then all kind of written and essays? So I mean, one problem with only giving them, we've moved also to a lot of, basically our first year is just MCQs now, which
Yeah,
obviously makes the marking much easier. But you have to then ask how well we're preparing them for the later years where they are going to have to sit there and write. So I think, yeah, I wondered how it's sort of links into what they'll have to do in exams in the following year.
yeah, you're completely spot on because, yes, specifically for biomedical sciences, they do sit for 2 exams in their level 6 in semester 1, cellular pathology and infection, and blood sciences, and they need to write. Yes, it's a case study, and they need to write. And it's a closed book as well. So I think this is why we needed to have these short essay questions in the paper in order to make sure that the students are on board with writing. But still, when we compare the average mark for this specific section, which we call it a discriminative section because it tells us whether the students they have actually studied in depth to score really good mark in this. But still, the performance wasn't great in comparison to the MCQs and the EMQs, the extended matching question. So yeah, but we thought this style of question, like the short answer question, is actually the one that is preparing them for what is coming after. But hopefully we will see this specific batch and see what happens in their level 6 and see whether they are doing better. Yeah.
Yeah, follow that because actually, I think you know that leads on to you have to think of the whole assessment strategy of your course. Now, I remember quite a few years ago, one of my colleagues was amazed that their son's doing medicine, and I think it might have been at Birmingham. That all their exams were MCQ. There were no written essay questions.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes you think, is that feasible within and I know other courses there can be single best answers and quite sophisticated ways of questioning. And actually, if the extended piece of writing under exam conditions is really challenging, then should you have that level 6 either? You can have extended pieces of writing. I'm a big fan of extended pieces of writing should be coursework, not exams. I personally don't believe in exams under exam conditions, but I think the exams serve a purpose when they're perhaps solving problems, working through problems, and it's their work and whatever. But essays, I think students can do a better essay as coursework. I know we're in a climate of AI now, but I think so. I was just wondering, actually, can you be a bit, be a bit more radical in terms of your assessment strategy for the whole course?
Yeah, I agree with you, Neil, because I was before I joined Sheffield Hallam University, I was teaching in medical school in Dubai, and our questions they were medical school, as you said, and we used to design them in a USMLE style where we bring clinical vignettes, proper clinical vignettes, and then we have it's a clinical scenario, and then we follow the same structure and everything, but they are quite hard. I'm not very sure whether our students will handle those questions really in a good way, because it's not like which of the following is an enzyme to break this reaction. No, they are sophisticated MCQs, and I'm not very sure. Even our students with those simple MCQs that we are having now, still they struggle with it. If we don't provide practice questions and mock exams, they still struggle with those MCQs. Yeah, so I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting because I think there's two things here. I mean, from what you were saying, the problem is not necessarily they struggle with writing under exam conditions. They're perhaps struggling with the material as well. All that higher level of.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. So because we are a big team, some of us might be more understanding. They come from a practice perspective. They know that even sometimes terminology might be difficult. Maybe we take it as default, but these students, they struggle with those terminologies. Some of us, they are doing really good job by offering, or even the slides design when it comes to delivery, they do have a simple concepts, because the students, all these details, they're going to go somewhere else. They're not going to be stored in their archive data. So some of us, they're doing great job by focusing on what is the knowledge that is going to go forward with these students in their applications. Some of us, they go for details. So maybe this is something I can discuss with the team. Like, can we make things simplified and more practical so the students, they digest the material better? Maybe, yeah, we tackle it this way.
Alice?
I wondered if you'd done any analysis on whether there's any particular demographic groups that are struggling more than others. For example, do you have a lot of students who are studying in their second language or from different demographic backgrounds that means they're particularly struggling and might need more support?
I have looked this year specifically. I have looked at those who were not able to pass. And because the majority of our students are home student, but they might also be coming from a minority. But I looked at their learning contract, whether these students, they do have any disability that we're not aware of. And surprisingly, the ones that they have learning contracts, most of them they have actually passed. So it's not learning contract problem, but demographic. I can look at this further.
I just wondered if they were struggling with the writing part. Obviously, that's something that we find that students who don't have English as a first language, they particularly struggle with the written answers when they're being asked to, write. But maybe it sounds like that's probably not the problem in your case.
No, for level 7s, because most of our cohort is international, so exactly we have this problem. Yes.
Yes. But not with this cohort. Yeah.
But not with this cohort, because the majority are home students. Yes.
Can I ask, how are they assessed in their first year?
They have a fundamental module, which is also, again, 40 credit hours module. It runs parallel to a skills module, and it's also based on MCQs and labeling style questions. They don't have really short answers or short essay questions. And then in their second semester, they do have a module where they need to go, it's a walking lab. So they do go and they tackle some biomedical related problem from the outside, and then they just present, it's a presentation. So these, I don't think they do have any module that actually take them through proper writing. No, I think this is the first module.
Be one of the issues, yeah.
Yeah.
But we try and we do essays in the first year actually now, but really small stakes. So the January exams in first year are only MCQ and problem questions, and then their summer exams are essays, but they're only worth 30% of the module, so they're able to pass the module even if they completely mess that up. But then we encourage them to reflect on their performance. When we have tutorials in second year, we ask them to think about how they approach the first year exams and what they would change, and give them a bit of advice, and then the higher stakes in second year.
This is really good one. Yeah.
I just wondered what's the uptake for your mock exams? We've tried mock exams in the past, and we ended up the effort that they put into their answers, we were putting more effort into our feedback to try and get them up to the standard that we were expecting. It was much more work for us than it was for them. Do you get them writing much in those?
Okay, so what I do is, because these are 130, and I was the module leader, and because we are all stretched in our work plan. So what I did is, it was Blackboard based. So for MCQs, it was easy for me because it is automatically done. So they get to know the right answer, the correct answer automatically. So for the SAQs, which is short essay questions, I do provide them with the answer, with the key answer. And I gave them 24 hours window. I said, if you approach the exam or attempt the exam in this specific 24 hours, you would be able to see the key answers, because this is when I do and check and I release the key answer for them. So I don't give like a per se. I only have a very like a generic statement. I would say, for example, you have attempted this, but look at the key answer. And I just copy and paste and keep just posting all these marks randomly. For the MEQs, because of the Blackboard and the technicality of it, so I was only able to offer them the matching bit. But when it came to actually the reasoning part, this has been explained to them, because on Blackboard I was not able to set that. But then their expectations were set that they are required to actually have a reasoning for their matching question. So this is how I did it. I don't like provide like one individual formative or feedback per each of the student, because this will be like a madness.
Yeah. We used to do it in tutorials, so we just had to do it for our tutor group. So
I think the problem with mock exams is students don't prepare for them, do they? So they don't mimic the real thing. So you can have, I think it's good to have and go with actual exam questions in the class and things like that. See if there's any issue there. But if it's, if we still require them to revise and have that material in their memory, it's exam doesn't often do that because they don't revise for a mock. They just
And you know what? A very nice observation or interesting observation, I would say. The majority of the students, they did actually attempted MCQs. Many of them also attempted EMQs, and to less extent, they attempted the SAQs. So they knew that, okay, I'm going to make sure that I go for MCQs, I go for EMQs, but I'm not really
EMQs being, sorry, remind me.
extended matching question that is coming from their coursework.
Right, yeah.
And at least for myself, and this also instructed to other team members, that when we give our feedback, the feedback needs to be like a feed forward. So in case they have missed something that is coming in the exam, we still make sure that we write that information in their feedback. So at least I have done it for mine, and I also instructed the rest of the team to do the same. So it's a feed forward. They need to look at their feedback and benefit from this later on. But whether the students, they have done this or no,
So
I have no clue.
one other question is, how long is the exam?
Oh, that's really a good question. So it's a 3 hours exam plus 1 hour for inclusivity and then 15 minutes for reading. So in total, it's 4 hours and 15 minutes.
What was the hour for?
1 hour inclusive. So each hour, this is something we have in our assessment policy. So each hour receive 15 minutes for inclusivity, like if someone has any
So to all students,
neurodiversity to all students, yeah,
all students
neurodiverse,
like
yeah,
4 hour exams.
4 hour
That's
exam.
that's how the students will see it.
Yeah.
Just highlights again, I think, trying to assess 40 credits in one exam, you know. So I think maybe at the root of it, that's one of the. I mean, I know you're hamstrung, universities come up with all sorts of policies, but so it doesn't seem to be pedagogically sound to stick to 20 credit modules and save a bit of time and assessments, because it's not benefiting the students, is it? So
No,
we're not allowed to have any exams longer than 2 hours anymore. So
really,
yeah, a 4-hour exam seems like a lot to me.
well, we have 3 hours because we have 30 credit modules. So again, that's quite a big, and actually a lot. I mean, maybe 15 years ago, we moved from a 15 credit based system to 30 credits. And, a lot of the criticism of the 30 credits system is, that's a lot of it, but we allow 3 assessments per 30 credit at the moment, probably not for very much longer. But
I think we have some 40 credit modules which only have a single exam.
really?
With some coursework as well, but
Yeah.
so it's not. I wouldn't say it's massively out of line.
But the exam is only 2 hours.
Yeah. The reason why is so that students who require extra time because of disabilities or whatever, to mean that it won't go over about 3 or 4 hours for them, because some students end up with almost 100% extra time if they have rest breaks and extra time or whatever, and the exams office just want to make sure that nobody is ending up in an exam hall for more than like 3 or 4 hours.
But maybe that's something to talk at your institutions, to move to a 2-hour exam. I mean, you can give the
or 2 2-hour exams at least, like you say, split it.
A lot of universities
won't
allow. I mean, the reason, I think, we wouldn't allow 2 exams in one module.
Really?
Yeah, no, we're lucky to have an exam. So I think going forward, I mean, given my institution, it's likely with our new PVC that you'll only be allowed to have an exam if the professional body requires it.
Yeah, I think
So
in
if the
our
professional
case,
doesn't say you have to have it, we won't. It's possible that we won't be able to run exams.
No exams at all.
That's I mean, it hasn't come out yet, but that's the should we say the draft idea is that we'd only have exams when the professional body actually requires it.
How can you be sure that the student has actually done the work, though? If it's
I
just think it's not robust enough, is it?
Students, I think one thing is students at Sheffield, Hallam, and Kingston are probably very similar, and they're very different to students at UCL and Bristol. And the reason actually a lot of the students you end up at, say, Kingston is not necessarily they're less talented or less able or that. They're just not very good at exams. And so that's where exams are not, they're not serving the purpose of our students, non-inclusive assessment, things like that. But, my concern about that is, overuse exams. I think exams serve a purpose, but not having, in the past, we'd have had exam on just about every module. Now we probably only have half the modules. But going forward with AI, I think there will be a bit of a pressure to, to go back to exams, to have assessments under invigilated conditions, because
that's what we tried lots of different things through through COVID that were actually quite successful. So we kept them, the more applied, open-ended, giving them 24 hours to do something rather than just an hour, and expecting it to be much more structured and professional. But now with AI, you just can't do that. We've had to go back to the on-campus exams. So we've taken the opposite direction, but we have split one of ours. It was just too much for them to remember in one go. So it's still in the same exam period, but we just give them 2 separate topics within the same exam period. So they don't compartmentalize it quite as much then. I think if you did it per term, they'd forget everything they learnt in term 1 by the end of the year. But if you've got them both being at the exams both in the final summer period, then at least they'll remember some of it going into the year.
I think Samrein's hamstrung by, we've only got 2 assessments. So if you have 2 exams, then it's 100% exam, isn't it? Which is, I think that'd probably be counterproductive. So
I know. Although
we get around our assessment limits by doing portfolios. So they only have one final portfolio submission on the system that's monitored by the assessments and awards, but actually they do multiple assessments that contribute.
Well, we now have strict rules on the portfolio now.
We do have
define things what you can have in a portfolio. So
yeah. So what do you ask them to submit in their A portfolios? Are they only skills?
There's loads of things. I mean, they don't see it as a portfolio. They see it as individual assessments, but it's just we class it as a portfolio that combines all the elements of assessment at the end.
So how many elements would be in your portfolio?
4 normally, and then a final exam as well. So they actually have 5 assessments, but they're all really low stake, and they're all different types of assessments. Some presentations, some problem-based learning with mind mapping, some reflection. So we're not sort of disadvantaging any students that don't like a certain type of assessment, so that they've got a little bit of everything to have a go at, but they all have to do one exam at the end. But as I say, in first year we keep that a low weighting, and then that increases as they go through their course. But we do a lot of support around exam strategies and things like that.
I do think if you've got it seems like the written questions, or extended writing questions, are the challenging bit, and I think the permitted materials open, and I wouldn't go open book. Permitted materials, you can take in X number of pages of notes. So students actually have to make those notes to help, it's part of their revision process. So I'm an external examiner at Nottingham Trent, and every, they have exams in lots of modules, but every single exam is permitted materials.
Open book.
They have no closed book exams at all.
Yeah,
we do that, and the IBMS approve our program, so I think they'd be okay with that. Perhaps not in everything, but in some things.
Yeah, I can ask more about this, but for example, in level 7, the module I lead, because with all these curriculum redevelopment again happening in our PG, postgraduate studies, now they have turned almost all the modules into coursework. So we rarely have exams. So only we have exam in the end of semester 1, where we have 40 credit hours module, and only one exam. So now it's closed book, because they said they want to add stringency to the assessment. So what happens is that the students, they all passed their coursework happily, and then it came to the exam time. This is when we got a 50% failure. They are international students, but also there is no element of having this open book. As I think, Joe, have you said this before, that the language, or Alice, you have brought that, point about the language. And this is why the students are struggling with written essay questions. So I'm not very sure whether this is going to be allowed or no, but yeah.
Very interesting. Lots to discuss. We'll probably carry on all day. Any other questions from anyone at the moment? Well, thank you so much, Samrein. It's been lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
With you. And
thank you very much.
It's such a shame that we're having to deal with this, but it's also a little bit reassuring that everyone's having to deal with this, and it's not just us.
I mean, on the positive thing, you now have a pass rate of 86% rather than 40. So I think,
I know. And the management are happy. The students
exactly,
are happy.
86 is getting pretty close to what management probably wants.
100%. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.